Hey everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land, have no worries. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and this is ILTV's Weekly Review. Well, it's official. Naama Yisrael has just been released from Russian prison, and the Israeli Prime Minister has even picked her up in his government plane. Now, the Israeli-American woman has been in jail for 10 months on drug smuggling charges, but now that she's received a presidential pardon from the Russian government, she can finally walk free.
אני רוצה להודות לך בשם כל עם ישראל על ההחלטה המהירה שלך לתת חנינה לנעמה יששכר. זה דבר שמרגש את כולנו, והתודה שלנו ניתנת באמת מכל אזרחי ישראל, מכל הלב.
That's the Israeli Prime Minister thanking Russian President Vladimir Putin for allowing a young Israeli-American woman to walk free from Russian prison. Today, Naama Yisrael is going home to Tel Aviv after an almost year-long ordeal that has changed the course of her life. Naama Yisrael was supposed to arrive home just in time for the summer, but what should have been an exciting homecoming to Tel Aviv turned into a nightmare during her layover in Moscow. The now 27-year-old was on her way home to Israel from India when she was arrested back in April of 2019. An alleged 10 grams of marijuana had been found in her luggage during a layover at the Moscow airport, and she was soon charged with drug smuggling and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. The Israeli-American has denied the charges, claiming she wasn't planning to enter Russia during the layover and that she had no access to her luggage at the time. From the beginning, her family says that she was being framed.
I think it's something a lot bigger and a lot deeper, and it's been obvious that 7.5 years is the punishment doesn't fit the crime. So yeah, I do think she's being used as a political pawn.
Naama is believed to have been used as a political hostage in a diplomatic struggle between Russia, Israel, and the U.S. over the release of Russian prisoner Alexei Burkov, who has just pleaded guilty to running a website that helped people commit more than $20 million in credit card fraud in the United States. Well, now it looks like Naama's nightmare has finally come to an end. Prime Minister Netanyahu has just arrived in Moscow to welcome Naama upon her release and take her back home to Israel on his plane.
Вы знаете, что указ на ее помилование подписан. Она, слава богу, для нее это очень хорошо, не пересекала даже границу Российской Федерации. Все это было найдено у нее в багаже, при перемещении багажа из одного самолета в другой. Передайте самые наилучшие пожелания и ей, и ее семье, и ее маме.
On Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin pardoned her on humanitarian principles, and Netanyahu subsequently thanked his, quote, friend Putin for the move, saying he was looking forward to meeting the leader in Russia on Thursday. But senior Israeli officials claim that Naama's release didn't actually have anything to do with Israel. Rather, it was a goodwill gesture towards the United States, since Israel hasn't given Moscow anything in return. According to Israeli reports, Russia had originally asked Israel to transfer a piece of the Russian Orthodox Church property in Jerusalem to the Kremlin, but Justice Ministry officials in Israel opposed the measure. But Naama's family certainly aren't thinking about the politics around her release. Her mother, Yafa Yisrael, says she couldn't sleep all night and is thanking Israel for helping Naama get out.
Now first, some breaking news before we begin. Anger over the Trump peace plan seems to have already devolved into violence, as Israeli security has prevented an attempted stabbing attack on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. 2 Palestinian suspects have been arrested now, one armed with a knife. No injuries have been reported. Now moving on, peace to prosperity, a vision to improve the lives of both the Palestinian and Israeli peoples. That's what the United States has now laid out in its long-awaited 180-page peace plan. And as expected, the Middle East peace plan is being received with very mixed emotions.
U.S. President Donald Trump says that he's created the peace deal of the century, but not everyone agrees. So what's inside it? Here's the breakdown. First off, Trump's Mideast peace deal calls for the establishment of a state of Palestine.
This map will more than double the Palestinian territory and provide a Palestinian capital in eastern Jerusalem, where America will proudly open an embassy. No Palestinians or Israelis will be uprooted from their homes.
But the plan also recognizes Israeli sovereignty over major settlement blocks in Judea and Samaria or the West Bank, meaning Israel would absorb roughly 40% of Area C in the territory. Now, with the way that the territory is divided up, 97% of the Palestinian and Israeli people living there wouldn't have to move and would retain their respective citizenships. The remaining 3% would have to adhere to whatever government was in control of where they live. Still, the deal simultaneously calls for a 4-year freeze in new Israeli settlement construction, during which time the details of the full deal would be negotiated. Yet, it's unclear if that freeze will extend afterwards. What is certain, though, is that according to the deal, Israel would extend sovereignty to the Jordan Valley and maintain military control over the entire region. But Palestinians would have freedom of transportation between Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, and beyond. Here's the catch. The Palestinian Authority would be demilitarized and must retake control of the Gaza Strip from terror groups like Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. Now, all Israeli captives and remains would then have to be returned, and Israel would have to release Palestinian prisoners that haven't been convicted of murder or attempted murder. Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, would then be connected to Gaza through a mix of roads and tunnels.
My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides, a realistic two-state solution that resolves the risk of Palestinian statehood to Israel's security.
So what would happen to Jerusalem? Well, the holy sites would be under joint control, but worshippers of all faiths would be allowed to pray at any site, including the Temple Mount. The city as a whole would be under Israeli sovereignty, but the Palestinian Authority would be allowed to set up government in the eastern half as its capital too. Now the question is, will both sides accept this deal?
Now let's get back to the United States' monumental new peace deal, because the Palestinian Authority is not stopping with just rejecting the deal. They are now calling for protest.
For months, the Palestinian Authority has been saying that the Peace to Prosperity deal is a non-starter because it doesn't give the PA control over Jerusalem nor account for Palestinian refugees.
And now, less than a day since its release, PA President Abbas has penned a letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu in which he attacks the so-called deal of the century as an abandonment of the Oslo Accords. And therefore, Abbas argues that the PA is now free to break from any and all agreements signed with Israel, including security coordination in Judea and Samaria or the West Bank territories.
Meanwhile, PA President Abbas and his Fatah party are campaigning against the deal both at home and abroad. The party has released a music video calling for violence against the deal, and Abbas is planning to speak before the United Nations Security Council in the next few weeks to drum up support for his own version of an agreement.
We will try our best with our friends to have the strongest possible resolution or draft resolution, and to receive the strongest and largest possible voting in favor of that resolution. Of course, we would like to see that a strong, large opposition to this Trump plan, and to reflect the language of the global consensus.
The PA's draft is unlikely to pass, however, because the United States will probably veto it at the Security Council, especially as the PA will not even consider negotiating their existing deal. As for the music video, the president's Fatah party published it just after the deal's publication. It features an armed Hamas-affiliated band calling for the U.S. deal, as well as any who support it, to be trampled. So now that the United States Peace to Prosperity plan is out, how are the Israelis reacting? Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu says that he's planning on starting the annexation process as soon as he's allowed, and his rival Benny Gantz has already vowed to work on the plan's success as well. That's right, most of Israel's top politicians are on board to give President Trump's peace deal a fair shot.
I hope that the Palestinians embrace this and build with Israel a future of prosperity and peace. I also hope that our other Arab neighbors embrace your vision and forge a path of reconciliation with Israel that can create for all of us a brilliant future.
Defense Minister and New Right Party Chief Naftali Bennett, on the other hand, says he will never accept a Palestinian state, let alone cede land to it.
כי ארץ ישראל חשובה מבחירות. שיהיה ברור, לא נאפשר שממשלת ישראל תכיר במדינה פלסטינית בשום מצב, ולא נאפשר שישראל תמסור ולו סנטימטר של אדמה לערבים.
Israelis on the street, meanwhile, are also apprehensive, but for a range of reasons. A poll released Monday has found that 45% of Jewish Israelis are against unilateral annexation of any territory in Judea and Samaria or the West Bank. And the other 55% is totally split on what to do, ranging from support for annexing some of Area C, which is already under Israeli control, to annexing 100% of the West Bank entirely. Over half of the respondents do believe in some sort of negotiated two-state solution, though. Still, one thing that most Israelis are supporting in this deal is the onus that it places on the Palestinians to come to the table and with more realistic expectations. As Prime Minister Netanyahu explains, this is a revolutionary change from previous proposals.
We will also remember January 28th, 2020, because on this day, you became the first world leader to recognize Israel's sovereignty over areas in Judea and Samaria that are vital to our security and central to our heritage. And on this day, you too have charted a brilliant future for Israelis, Palestinians, and the region by presenting a realistic path to a durable peace.
ISIS is the terrorist group that instilled fear around the world and drove headlines in years past. And though we haven't heard much about the Islamic State in recent months, they've just released a new statement. And here with us is ILTV's Shanna Fold with the report. Shanna, so what's new here?
So ISIS released a very scary 37-minute long audio recording stating that Israel is now their #1 target and they're going to be focusing on Israel. It seems that the trigger point was the U.S. peace plan that was dropped today. Make Israel the main target of attacks and take down U.S. President Donald Trump. That's what an Islamic State spokesman is revealing in a terrifying 37-minute voice recording published on social media. The recording says things like, "In the coming days, God willing, you will see what harms you and what will make you forget the horrors you have seen." As well as, "Allah has gathered you in Palestine so that the Muslims may kill you." The threats come as Prime Minister Netanyahu and political rival Benny Gantz joined Trump in his office this week to go over the peace proposal. Though the exact details of the deal of the century have not yet been rolled out, it is already rejected by Palestinians who believe the plan sides with Israel and will impede a possible two-state solution. Though ISIS has been fighting a violent war with Egyptians in the Sinai Peninsula, the IDF believes the ISIS affiliate there will soon turn its attention to Israel. The IDF's chief of staff says the army needs to be prepared for the breakout of war in a very short period of time.
All right, I hope that you're ready to hear this one, Aaron. This week I met with an incredible man who survived the Holocaust against all odds and immigrated to Israel. He's almost 90 years old, but he's sharper than both of us combined, let me tell you. Check this out.
אני מספר לכם, רק תספרו, את יודעת, אני רוצה, תוציאו את זה לדורות, אתם צעירים, אתם אומרים, איך אנחנו חיים, מה כל החיים שלי, מה אני רציתי סך הכל לספר לכם מה אנחנו עברנו.
This is Yeshayahu. He's 87 years old and today he lives in southern Israel. For years, he's refused to talk about what happened to him during the Holocaust as a little Jewish boy living in Galicia, Poland. But today, he wants to tell his story to the world before it's too late.
אני הייתי כשפרצה מלחמה, הייתי בן 7. ואחר כך, את יודעת, אמא שלחה אותי מהבית. למה? שהיא רצתה שאני אשאר. נתנה לי קצת בגדים, נתנה לי קצת אוכל, ואמרה לי, ישעיהו, הולך לשם המשפחה, יהיה לך טוב. דיברתי לשם, הם ישר לא רצו שכולם ידעו שאני יהודי. אז שלחו אותי עם הרועים למרעה, עם הפרות. יום אחד האמא שלי באה לשם, רוצה לחבק אותי, רוצה לנשק אותי. אני לא, האמא גירשה אותי מהבית, אני אלך איתה. הם נשארו בבית ולי שלחה ככה רחוק. ואני עצוב, ככה הייתי, לא רציתי לדבר ולא דיברתי כלום עם האמא. זה נשאר לי כעת, את יודעת, כאילו פצע בלב. אתם לא מקרב, היא באה בדרך לא דרך, ואני לא דיברתי את המילה.
Yeshayahu's mother had just wanted to check in on her little boy to make sure he was safe, because she was being forced into the Jewish ghetto. That was the last time that he saw her, and soon enough he too was sent to a different ghetto. But he managed to run away with a group of Jews who later became partisans. Yeshayahu was just 8 years old, but for more than 2 years he found himself hiding out in the forest and being sent on missions behind enemy lines to take down the Nazis.
איך אתה חי ביחד? אתם יודעים, כל יום קמים, כל אחד הולך כמו קוף בכל פינה, מוריד את הבגדים ומחפש אם אין לו כל מיני הקטופרזיטים על הגוף, קינים או משהו כזה. כולם צריכים להתנקות אם רוצים לחיות ביחד. שנתיים וחצי, 27 חודש.
But one day he was caught by the Nazis.
בגרמנים לקחו אותי. הביאו אותי למקום, את יודעת, לווילה. אמרו לי, אתה לא אומר כלום, ניתן אותך לאנשים רעים. קיבלתי מכות, ואני ידעתי, אם אני כן אספר, או אני לא אספר, בין כה יחסלו אותי.
But Yeshayahu somehow managed to run away. He got his hands on a small machine gun and shot himself out of the villa before escaping into the woods. There, he made his way back to his partisan friends and lived out the rest of the war in the forest.
איך בן אדם שעבר מה שאתה עברת ממשיך?
אין לך מה ללמוד. אני הולך, מחפש בפח הישפה, אבל אני כבר יכול לנשום אוויר. אני לא מפחד מעלה שנופל לי למעלה, ואני באותו זמן, את יודעת, הלב דופק לי ככה, שאולי מישהו הולך.
But Yeshayahu's hopes of reuniting with his family were crushed when the war came to an end.
אני לא יודע מה קרה עם האמא שלי, לא יודע מה קרה עם האחיות, לא יודע מה קרה עם אחותי שאמא שלחה אותי לפניי, לא יודע כלום, חיפשתי אותם, לא מצאתי שום דבר.
פול, לא דיברת על זה מלא שנים, נכון?
למי אני אספר? אם את בדור האחרון לא סיפרתי, בשביל מה אני נשארתי בחיים? אני רציתי לשקם את עצמי. לא רציתי להיות מקרה לרחמים, רציתי להיות מקרה לגאווה, שאני אהיה, את רואה? בואי, תראי את החצר שלי. הנה, תסתכלי, הבת שלי שהייתה בשב"כ, אני שיברתי בגולני, השתתפתי בכל הקרבות. את יודעת, לא אמרתי שאני מסכן.
זה 75 שנים מאז
נכון, שנשתחררו מהנאצים.
אבל, והיום אתה עדיין חושב על זה?
אני לא חושב. אני חושב קדימה.
This is one of those only in Israel stories that you hear about. A 13-year-old Israeli boy was foraging for mushrooms following the recent rainfall when he stumbled upon something unbelievable, a stone slab with a Greek inscription that's believed to be thousands of years old.
הלכנו לטוף פטריות, שלפתע הוא קורא לי, אומר לי, אבא בוא תראה משהו. באתי, ניגשתי ונדהמתי לראות את האבן הזאת, היפה הזאת, שהיא מקושטת בכל מיני עיטורים.
Stav Meir is just in 7th grade, and he was out hunting for wild mushroom with his family in Caesarea when he noticed something strange. A stone slab sticking out of the ground that was most likely brought to the surface by the downpour. Meir says he immediately recognized it was something ancient because he studies archaeology in school with the Israeli Antiquities Authority.
ואני שמח שבעקבות הלימודים האלה הוא בעצם קיבל את הכישורים לבוא ולהגיד, מצאתי משהו, יש לזה ערך, זה בעל ערך.
Well, the 13-year-old was certainly right about the value of his discovery. The IAA has identified the slab as a Byzantine burial inscription, engraved in Greek with a cross. The identity of the deceased reads, the grave of Anastasius or Anastasia, according to researchers. They say that in ancient times, Caesarea was a center of attraction for a wealthy population, and that the quality of the slab discovered indicates that the person entombed probably had a lot of money. Well, little Stav Meir has now been awarded a certificate of appreciation from the Israel Antiquity Authority, and he'll give a special lesson to his class for the discovery that he made.
All right, now we carry around data on little thumb drives and memory cards that clip onto our keys, but now doctors can carry human organs on a chip.
Now, it may sound crazy, but Israeli and U.S. researchers have created chips that contain 9 mini human organs, including a brain on a chip, a heart on a chip, and a liver on a chip.
Organs on a chip. Sounds delicious.
Well, Aaron, these organs are not meant for eating. They are set to change the medical world. Now, 2 new studies from Tel Aviv University and Harvard have published the news about the devices on Monday. The idea was developed at Harvard in 2010, where researchers took cells from hearts, kidneys, brains, and lungs and put them in a plastic cartridge and called them chips. But the big news now is that researchers have found the organ cells, or they found that these specific organ cells react to drugs in the same way that human organs respond while on clinical trial.
Now, usually drugs are tested on rodents, but a huge amount of the time, 60 to 90% of the time to be exact, the drugs work for rats but fail on humans. And that road to successful medications can be a very long and expensive one because of the test trials. But now, with organs on a chip, the process can be expedited, testing straight on human cells.
Now, in more related tech and healthcare news, Microsoft's Israel team has also just come up with a new bot that can help treat people in need of medical services inside their own homes, while also making things quicker for doctors, of course.
The Microsoft healthcare bot is powered by artificial intelligence, and it's not meant to replace doctors, but it responds to nervous patients when they need assistance.
And nervous parents as well. Well, everything is done using the web, and the idea is that the user can send over a message about a symptom or an ailment to the service, and the bot will actually reply with messages that can help the patient get information and then ultimately set up an appointment at the right clinic with the right professionals.
And when the patient arrives to the doctor, they're better informed, and it reduces the burden on doctors and nurses so that they can spend their time on more serious cases.
This is something that is really perfect for all the hypochondriacs out there. I know that there are some in our control room right now who are thinking about this. Now we're moving on to a completely different story. Now, only 1% of people will develop a malignant brain tumor in their lives, but of those who do, 95% of them will succumb to the illness. Now, in an effort to turn those numbers around, Israeli researchers have come up with a way to use electric pulses to take down tumors. Check this out. It's called glioblastoma, or GBM. And if you know anything about it, you know that this aggressive form of brain cancer kills 95% of its victims. And until now, treatment has been sparse. Israeli researchers have now come out with a device that zaps tumors using electric pulses. And the innovative treatment is now going to be streamlined into Israel's socialized healthcare system. It's called the Optune, a netted cap using TT fields or tumor-treating fields, which are alternating electric fields to specifically target cancer cells without causing too much harm to nearby healthy ones. The device is meant for patients who have been recently diagnosed with GBM or are going through chemotherapy. The Optune was developed by an Israeli biotech firm called Novocure. One patient suffering from the disease tried the cap mid-chemotherapy. He says while the cancer doesn't seem to improve, the treatment has prevented his condition from getting any worse. Novocure has gotten FDA approval and is approved in Europe, Canada, and the United States. You're either portrayed as inspiring or as the source of pity. I'm sick of it. That is what Israeli producer Asaf Greenbaum has to say about how people with disabilities are represented in the media. And that's why he has just launched a new 3-part documentary series that delves into the personal lives of people with handicaps. Check this out.
אני בת 23 ואני רוצה להיות סקסית ויפה, וזה הכול.
אז מה, אתה מרגיש?
כן. תמונות שהייתי מפרסמת באינסטגרם או בפייסבוק היו נטולות כיסא.
אני לא מספר לפני דייטים שאני נכה.
אתה מסתיר משהו באישיות שלך.
תפריד כבר את הנכות ממי שאתה כבן אדם.
יש לנו את המגבלות שלנו, גם לכם יש.
Perfect. That's the name of this groundbreaking new Israeli docu-series. How do you have sex? When do you tell your date that you're disabled? These are just some of the questions that 5 Israelis with disabilities are asked to answer. From cerebral palsy to paralysis, the show's stars all face a range of different handicaps. But they're on a mission to change how the world views them by speaking openly and honestly about issues of self-image, their relationships, and sexuality in a way that most of us haven't seen before. The show's creator and producer Asaf Greenbaum is handicapped himself and says this docuseries is all about changing the narrative that exists around the disabled community. That's it for ILTV's weekly review. See you next week.